Welcome everybody. On today's video, I have some interesting facts regarding some things in Fate Grand Order that we've heard and wondered why Lostbelt 6 is written the way it is. Well, that is because originally Nasu wanted to go for a more Wizard of Oz vibe for the story, and thus Castoria's first ascension is more of a country bumpkin, right? That's part of her character. But Taguchi decided he wanted her to wear prettier stuff. He wanted her to look nicer, more fancy in a sense. Thus, they made more designs, getting her second and third ascension, and thus the story Nasu made fit that. Now, other characters that also affected the story are Camazots, who, as we all know, is a beast in Lostbelt 7, but Camazots was supposed to be a mid-boss, but when they gave the design over to his artist, who then created a design that we all know and probably love, they thought this design essentially has too much aura. This design is too cool to be what we originally wanted, thus he got upgraded to be the way he is in the story, a much more interesting and deeper character. With Nasu essentially saying that he thought the design looked like a hero king that defeated Ort. Don't know where he got all that from, but hey, let Nasu be Nasu, I guess. And thus, he was no longer in a role that would be overshadowed by Tez, but rather be more complementary. Speaking of Tezcatlipoca, originally he was supposed to be an easy to use villain for the story, a god of war who surprisingly was supposed to be wearing a business suit, dealing weapons, Nicolas Cage Road to War style. But then Nasu and the team did more research and realized they could do more with him, and thus he evolved into Tezcatlipoca that we know. Now, regarding the design that I'm sure a lot of us will consider controversial for multiple reasons, be it for the way he looks, be it for the art style, or a bit of both. Essentially, after doing Oberon and giving that design to a famous legendary mangaka, Nasu wanted to do the same thing for Tezcatlipoca, which he actually met at the 15th anniversary Fate Museum. The Fairy Knights are where they are specifically because Taguchi wanted to make female roundtable knights. So instead of gender bending them, they just made new characters with those names and abilities. And one of the Fairy Knights, Babanshi, if you're ever curious about what her third ascension is supposed to be since it doesn't appear in the story at all, according to Nasu, her third ascension is her true form, where she reverts to how she was before being given the name Fairy Knight Tristan. I also have a video about Babanshi where I talk a bit more about her third ascension, so if you want to check that out, you can go do that. And while we're still talking about Lostbelt 6 characters, the reason Oberon is a Vortigern is because Nasu wanted to use Vortigern, but the thing is, where Vortigern is first named, I guess by extension, first really doing anything for people to even know about his character, would be from Garden of Avalon, which is a light novel basically going over Artoria's backstory, which honestly, I think Type Moon needs more stories like that, going over other characters and their history within the Fate verse. So Nasu thought it would be easy for her to slip him into Lostbelt 6, but Nasu was always cooking and trying to figure out how to get Oberon into one of these stories. And you're wondering, how rare is Garden of Avalon? Well, now we can just look it up online, but originally it was something you can only get from the Unlimited Blade Works DVD in Japan if you bought a certain version of it. So, clearly not very easy or cost efficient a get for a general fan who's not willing to spend a little extra back then. Now we can go all the way back to Babylonia, and I'm sure we all remember Kingu, the Enkidu that wasn't Enkidu. Well, there's actually a behind the scenes reason for that, and that is because they weren't allowed to use Enkidu's character, but they did have his model, and thus they decided to create Kingu, someone who looks like Enkidu but wasn't Enkidu. So if you like Kingu's character in Babylonia, then you can thank that restriction for why we have those moments. Now let's talk about something a bit more general. Why are the character designs the way they are? Well, my friends, that is because essentially the process, as far as we know from the 10th anniversary interview, tells us they more or less do the research and give a sort of guide to the artist that's going to be making the character, but then they leave the design completely up to the artist themselves. themselves. But essentially this is the reason why Edison looks the way he does, because the artist literally gave Edison a lion head. From the interview they said that the artist just wanted to do something surprising. So in a sense it does seem like a lot of the character designs are made with the research regarding the characters' histories in mind, but design wise these characters very much so are the artist's interpretations, the artist's OC version of these figures from history and myth, and not supposed to strictly be pure historical depictions of these characters. I'm sure to some of you that might have been obvious, but hey, the more you know. And lastly, let's talk about some more lore stuff. So as we all know, if you are caught up with your Fate and Titan lore, there are different ages, such as the Age of Gods, the Age of Humans, and so on. But before the Age of Gods, we have the Age of Dragons. Now, the term dragon is very widespread, so it doesn't just mean dragons, it can also mean things like snakes, because snakes can also be considered a type of dragon. That also includes dinosaurs, hence why in Lostbelt 6, they didn't know about gods, because that was taking place technically at a point where gods weren't much of a thing. So before the Age of Gods was the Age of Dragons, or dinosaurs, you get the idea. And now that that is confirmed according to the interview. Now if you want to know where I got this information from, I'll have the link to the videos in the description, so check that out, just so you know I'm not making this stuff up. Either way, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and check out some of my other stuff.